Welcome back to LexiTalk with Dr. Yusefi. You know we love diving deep into the nuances of vocabulary.
And today we're going to be laser focused on two words, two really powerful words.
That's right. Two little words that can pack a huge punch.
Absolutely. We're going to be exploring the words uphold and undermine. And we'll be drawing insights and examples from the Oxford Word Skills Advanced book.
Yeah, a fantastic resource, by the way, for anyone out there looking to really refine their English skills.
Especially if you're aiming for that advanced level, that B2 to C2 range.
Exactly. And what's really cool about this book is that it doesn't just throw a bunch of words at you, it actually breaks things down.
Absolutely. Like it delves into things like prefixes. It shows you how those little additions can totally change the meaning of a word.
Fascinating stuff.
It is.
So our mission today is to take these two words, uphold and undermine, and we're going to really dissect them. We're going to see how their meanings shift and how they impact our communication.
Right, because context is key.
Yeah, context is everything.
It is.
So let's start with uphold. What does this word bring to mind? I always feel like it conveys this sense of strength.
Absolutely. Like a pillar or a foundation. Something solid and enduring.
Exactly. It's about maintaining something important.
Yes, and at its very core, uphold means to keep or defend a principle.
Right.
Or a law, for that matter.
So it's about actively supporting something.
Right. Ensuring that it continues to exist, that it's followed, that it's respected.
Okay. So to really understand this, let's dive into some specific examples.
Let's do it.
I'm thinking about our institutions, like our justice system. You know what comes to mind? The police force.
Right. A perfect example.
It's mentioned in Unit 35, Section B of our trusty Oxford Word Skills Advanced book.
And what's the fundamental role of the police?
Well, to uphold the law, of course.
Exactly. Their actions are all about ensuring those legal principles are maintained and that order is preserved within society.
So it's about safeguarding those foundations.
Right. And it's not just the police either. Think about courts. They're there to uphold justice, making sure the law is applied fairly.
It's all connected.
It is.
Now, what's so interesting is how this concept of upholding isn't limited to these huge societal structures.
Right.
It also applies to our personal lives.
Absolutely.
Unit 17, Section A of the book actually talks about admirable qualities. Things like dignity and humility.
Right, and upholding these qualities.
Exactly. How do you see uphold connecting to our personal sense of dignity?
Well, think about dignity as that inner sense of self-respect.
That inherent worth.
Exactly. And someone might uphold their dignity by acting in a way that aligns with their values, even when faced with really tough challenges.
So it's about maintaining that standard of behavior.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it's similar with humility. Someone might consciously choose not to boast about their achievements. They're upholding a sense of modesty.
Makes sense. So it's about this personal code.
That internal compass.
Exactly.
Guiding our actions.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's think about how uphold functions in more formal communication.
Yeah, okay.
Unit 67, Section B focuses on formal letters.
Right. A very specific context.
What kind of language or tone would you say someone would use to uphold a sense of professionalism in that setting?
Well, you definitely want to use clear and precise language. You'd want to steer clear of slang or anything overly casual.
It has to have that formal feel.
Exactly. Maintaining that formal tone, whether it's your word choice or your sentence structure, it helps to uphold that professional image.
And the seriousness of the communication.
Precise.
Because you want to show that you respect the recipient and you're taking the matter seriously.
It's about establishing that credibility.
Right. And showing that you're approaching it in a professional manner.
It's a reflection of your professionalism.
Okay. Finally, let's consider truth and honesty.
Okay.
This is a big one. Unit 53, Section A delves into this.
Yeah. Truth and honesty are crucial.
How does uphold relate to these concepts?
Well, imagine you're recounting an event, or you're presenting an argument. To uphold the truth means to ensure your account is accurate and it's based on facts.
It's about integrity.
Absolutely. You're maintaining the integrity of the information you're conveying. You're not distorting it. You're not misrepresenting it in any way.
So it's about being truthful.
And it's about ensuring the truth is preserved.
So we've seen how uphold plays out in all these different situations, from legal systems to personal conduct to how we communicate. And it always points back to this idea of actively maintaining certain standards or principles.
It really highlights the importance we place on certain values and that active effort required to make sure they're respected and maintained.
I think it's time for a little check-in with our listeners.
A little pause for reflection.
Think about a time in your own life when you felt it was so important to uphold a rule or a principle.
Even if it was tough.
What was that situation, and what was it like to stand by that principle? Just take a moment to reflect.
And now we're back with more LexiTalk.
All right, so we've explored the heights of uphold. Now let's delve into its counterpart.
The flip side.
Exactly. Let's talk about undermine.
Undermine. It has a very different feel to it, doesn't it?
It does. Undermine, at its core, means to damage or weaken something.
Or someone.
Or someone. And it often happens gradually or even secretly.
Sneaky.
Yeah, it can be. It's about eroding that strength or stability.
Exactly. It chips away at the foundation.
And just like with uphold, we see undermine at work in all aspects of life.
Absolutely.
Let's consider work in finance, for example, particularly team dynamics. Unit 45, Section B of the book touches on this.
Okay.
What do you think? How can poor communication or a lack of collaboration undermine a team's effectiveness?
Oh, it can be absolutely devastating. I mean, if team members aren't open, if they're not sharing information freely, or if there's just a lack of trust and support, it can really damage morale.
Yeah, people become less motivated, less engaged.
And it can completely stifle any kind of collective drive, or any initiative for that matter.
And it's interesting because this undermining, it can be so subtle.
Right. It's not always this big dramatic blow up.
It can be harder to pinpoint.
It is. It's insidious. It creeps in slowly.
Okay, now if we think about political systems, Unit 41, Section A actually talks about scandals and allegations.
Interesting.
How do these events undermine public trust in institutions?
Well, when you have these repeated scandals or serious accusations of wrongdoing, it's natural for the public to start questioning the integrity of those in power.
People start to doubt.
Absolutely. It chips away at their credibility, and it erodes the faith people have in the system as a whole.
That foundation of trust starts to crumble.
Exactly.
Now let's zoom in on personal relationships. Unit 15, Section B discusses the idea of being guarded or cautious when getting to know someone new.
Okay.
I'm curious how revealing too much personal information too quickly might actually undermine that cautious approach.
It's an interesting point, because it could create a sense of vulnerability too soon.
Too much too fast.
Right. If someone is trying to build trust at a measured pace, and suddenly they're bombarded with all these personal details.
It can feel overwhelming.
It can. And it might even raise a little bit of unease, like, why is this person sharing so much so soon?
Undermining that initial guardedness.
Precisely. It's a subtle but really important point. It shows how our actions can unintentionally weaken the very dynamic we're trying to establish.
That's so true. Our actions can speak louder than words, sometimes in ways we don't even realize.
Right. We might have the best intentions.
But the impact can be totally different.
Exactly.
Okay, let's bring it back to truth and honesty like we did with Uphold. Unit 53, Section A again.
Right.
How can certain behaviors undermine the credibility of a story or even a person? You know, in contrast to upholding the truth.
Well, if someone is caught in a lie, or if they have a reputation for exaggerating or twisting the facts, it severely damages their credibility.
Yeah, it's hard to come back from that.
It is. And even when they might be telling the truth in a particular instance, people are already primed to doubt them.
Because there's that history.
Exactly. Their past actions have eroded that trust.
So undermine, it consistently refers to this process of weakening or damaging, often through these subtle or gradual means.
It can be incredibly impactful.
Yeah, it's like a slow leak. You might not notice it at first, but over time it can cause some serious damage.
Absolutely. And it's a stark contrast to uphold, isn't it?
It is. It's like the opposite end of the spectrum.
Uphold is about support and reinforcement. Undermine is about erosion and weakening.
All right, listeners, it's time for another quick thought exercise. Think about a time when someone's actions, and maybe they didn't even realize they were doing it, but their actions undermined your confidence in something you were doing, or maybe a project you were working on.
Right. It could be anything.
How did that feel compared to when you faced a more direct challenge or criticism? Think about those subtle ways that confidence or progress can be chipped away.
It's a valuable reflection.
It is. And now back to LexiTalk.
So to recap, we've explored uphold as that act of maintaining and defending, and undermine as the process of weakening and damaging, often in a way that's not immediately obvious.
Exactly. It's about those subtle undercurrents. Now, for our listeners out there, think about all the areas we've touched on today. Institutions, personal values, how we communicate, teamwork dynamics, and the importance of truth.
How does having this clear understanding of uphold and undermine change how you might interpret the situations around you, or even how you choose to communicate your own intentions?
It's about becoming more aware of the language we use
Mhm.
and the impact it can have.
It's about being mindful. And
Exactly.
as you go about your day, whether you're at work,
Yeah.
in your community, or in your personal relationships, see if you can spot these two forces at play.
The forces that uphold and the forces that undermine. It's amazing what you start to notice when you're paying attention.
It is. It reveals so much about the dynamics of our
That's
interactions.
what LexiTalk is all about.
So the key takeaway here is that words like uphold and undermine, they hold a lot of power.
They do.
And their meaning really depends on the context in which they're used. This awareness, this sensitivity to nuance, it allows for much more precise and impactful communication.
Absolutely. It's about choosing our words carefully and understanding the weight they carry.
And on that note, here's a final thought for our listeners to ponder.
Something to chew on.
In a world where we're constantly bombarded with information, exposed to so many different viewpoints, how consciously are you choosing to uphold the principles that matter most to you? And how are you navigating those actions that might unintentionally undermine the things you truly value?
It's a question worth asking ourselves.
It is, and it's something we can all reflect on in our daily interactions.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Uphold and Undermine.
Until next time.
This has been LexiTalk with Dr. Yusefi.